Well, we're on to episode number 2 of investing in cryptocurrency. And today we're going to find out how to invest in crypto. Bright Tibane is the partner at Bowman's, the legal firm. We're going to be finding out more from our legal eagle on some of the issues. And Caron Bowman is a senior product manager with Luno. Carin, it was really interesting before we go into the conversation that we're going to have in a moment, playing around with a Luno app. It is a very easy to use app. I felt it was a little bit like easy equities for crypto, but I'm sure that you guys would describe it a little differently to that.
Not necessarily. I mean, it's meant to be an investment platform at the end of the day, just that it's geared towards crypto instead of your normal fiat investments. So not that far away, actually.
But if I wanted to buy 100 rands worth of Bitcoin this morning, it would have cost, I would have got 0.000264 of a Bitcoin, which, yes. I mean, that really blows me away, that you can get to that kind of fractionalization and to bring it to the public at that level. But before we go into the conversation, how did you land up in this area in crypto? I looked at your CV. It's a varied one. And so it wasn't like you woke up one morning, presumably, and said, I think crypto is the next big thing. I want to get involved there. Or was it?
For me, we call it the penny drop moment. For me, I'd been keeping my eyes on crypto for a while. And it was quite obvious to me that this is something that may not be that big in our generation, but the next generation definitely would be the way that they use money. And if I wanted to make sure that my nieces and nephews didn't accidentally sell off the family jewels, someone in the family would have to learn how to use crypto to help them out. And so I kind of thought, well, it might as well be me. And so I decided to get involved.
And you've been involved in it now for over 2 years.
Yeah, now it's been almost 4 years, actually.
Okay, I need to update my CV or my reading of your CV, but we'll be talking about that in just a moment. Bright Tibane, lovely having you as well from the legal perspective. We have asked, or it's interesting when someone's in law that they would be attracted or brought into the crypto area. What attracted you?
So generally, I'm a regulatory lawyer focusing on financial sector, and when it was introduced, crypto was seen as falling under financial sector, and I thought I should cover it as well because I can't be seen to be a lawyer covering traditional investment assets or financial sort of assets. I thought I saw an opportunity for me to come in and expand my practice around this. And luckily, the regulators were aligned with our thinking. They are focusing on regulating crypto under the financial sector.
And why is it that Bowman's has taken such an interest in crypto?
I think it's changing the landscape, the legal landscape, and we think the world is changing. And for us to stay relevant lawyers, we have to move. So we needed to move with times to avoid being irrelevant lawyers in the near future.
And the recent regulatory developments, 19th of October, is a big day for crypto and for regulations. Just explain why that was so important.
It's important to bring certainties. There's always been a question of protection, especially the consumers. There are consumers who, and one of them, will not be prepared or will not trade crypto simply because we've got no statutory or regulatory protection. And with these regulations, one knows that it comes with some protection. If there are legal issues, I will not have to go the expensive route to court. I can go to the ombudsman. I can go to the regulator and I can get help without spending a lot of money. So from consumer perspective, it brings that certainty, and I'm sure most customers or consumers will be keen to buy crypto. And in terms of players, again, or I would say players in the market, I think they see it as a positive because there's been uncertainty in that respect as well. Playing in unregulated space, it just feels like you're not doing it right. But with the regulation and this light touch licensing framework that has been brought up, definitely it's a positive move.
It's so interesting, Carin, to hear that, because in a fairly lengthy career that I've had to date, I've seen markets start off and been like the absolute Wild West. I just think about, as a young reporter, the gilt market or bond market in South Africa. It was the Wild West. The guys were making huge amounts of money, but there was a lot of scam artists as well. Now, we've heard stuff like this in the crypto area over the, not least, a number of big issues globally and in South Africa where people have lost money. With regulation, does that address it?
It's a good start, I think. When you start having regulation, it becomes a lot easier for customers to know who they can trust, because they can immediately look as to who is adhering to the regulation and who is not. And immediate red flag, if you've seen that someone is not, you can avoid that company. It also means that customers start knowing where they can go and who they can seek help from. But also that the companies, in order to adhere to regulations, have to abide by certain rules, such as reporting to the financial intelligence agencies and to undergo regular audits and that sort of thing. So it takes time, I think, for all the necessary parts of the regulation to come into play and all the different processes that need to be put in there. But this is definitely the right direction that we're starting down in order to protect customers' rights and also to allow other people in the market to start working as well. Now that we have crypto as a kind of registered financial asset, and now that it's regulated or getting there, it means that financial advisors can now advise their clients on it, whereas before they weren't allowed to. So it opens up an entire new market in that area as well.
Were you at Luno waiting for this? And it's almost like you're a big name. You are the big name in South Africa in crypto. But the differentiation when nobody's regulated, I guess, is not as significant as it would be now that we've got regulations. You say, Luno, or Luno is a registered exchange or a registered with the Financial Services Act, whereas XYZ exchange wouldn't be. So I presume for a company like yours, this would almost be, we've really been waiting for it, or am I assuming incorrectly?
No, that's very much correct. At Luno, we regard adherence to regulation and our compliance as really a competitive advantage. And we've seen that very strongly in Malaysia, where we were one of the first to abide by the regulation that was set there. And it was a huge competitive advantage for us. And really, it ties into our ethos about how we think our customers should be protected and should be treated. So we're very, very happy that this is finally coming to fruition, because it lines up exactly with the sort of roadmap that we want to go for.
So let's get into how to actually buy cryptocurrency. Looking at your app, it's easy enough. You download, you presumably just give your know your client the FICA information, and then away you go. Is it as simple as that?
Pretty much, yeah. As long as you can indicate that you are a resident of the country that you're registering for, because of foreign currency controls, you have to actually register in the country that you are in. So you need to provide basic identification. And then once we know for sure that you are who you say you are, that's pretty much it. You just need to get some money onto the platform, and you can start as small as 10 Rand in some instances. And that's all it is. deposit it onto the platform and buy.
Right from your perspective, many people like the idea of crypto so that they can trade around the world. But South Africa does have exchange control. So are you able, as a South African, to buy crypto offshore? For instance, as Carin was mentioning a moment ago, Luno in Malaysia. So you want to use their platform and you want to use that as a basis. As a South African, are you allowed to?
Yes, specifically individuals. So our exchange control regime has got the pre-approved allowances for residents, including institutional and corporate. But for individuals, they've got a broader sort of allowance called a single discretionary allowance of up to R1 million. And they've got a foreign investment or capital allowance of up to 10 million rand. And SARB or the Reserve Bank issued a statement to say at this stage or so far they can only allow individuals to buy crypto assets offshore, also to move those monies or monies within their allowance to buy crypto assets offshore. And of course, that left a big question mark for corporates and institutional investors as it currently stands. And based on the statement that was publicly issued by the Reserve Bank, corporates and institutional investors are unable to legally or lawfully transfer money offshore for purposes of buying crypto assets. Individuals are free.
That's an interesting point because there are crypto exchanges offshore, there are crypto platforms offshore. There's all kinds of different vehicles which the public are told about and institutional investors are told about. Carin, why don't you just take us through that? What's the difference between an exchange and a platform and Luno?
Okay, well, I think it's easier if you take it back and look at what you know in terms of a traditional stockbroker and kind of compare it to that. So if you look at what a crypto platform is compared to a traditional stockbroker, it's somewhat similar to using a travel agent versus using a travel website where you book your own flights and accommodation. So your traditional stock exchanges are highly regulated and controlled. And while that offers customers a lot of protection, it creates barriers such as that you can't yourself usually enact trades on the stock exchange yourself. You have to use an accredited stockbroker who will do the exchanges on your behalf for a particular fee, much like you're paying a travel agent to book on your behalf. Now, crypto exchanges are far less regulated and less controlled, and so that means that there's no middlemen, and your customers can register on the crypto exchanges or the mini stock exchanges directly themselves. And while this gives them lots of control over their investments, they can do what they want. It also means that they're exposed to something very complex and very volatile, which is kind of like trying to find cheap flights around Christmas without using a travel site. And it's going to go as well as that. So in order to provide that similar facilitation that a traditional stockbroker provides in kind of handling those trades for you, but in a more modern self-service way, you have crypto platforms, which is what Luno is. And they offer direct access to a crypto exchange, but they also offer a more customer-friendly financial services, such as an automatic broker, which is designed to make the trades you want on the crypto exchange on your behalf, much like a traditional stockbroker would. So basically, a crypto exchange is very similar to a stock exchange, and a platform is similar to how a traditional stockbroker is, just kind of more of a automated self-service version, much like travel agents to travel websites.
And if you were to go directly to a crypto exchange, just for my own edification here, would you also be able to fractionalize your investing?
Yes, very much so. Do a little bit at a time.
It's it's real interesting. It does appear, though, that for most people, certainly for people starting out, maybe your nephews and nieces are going to go straight to exchanges, but for people starting out now, it does appear as though platforms are probably a better way of doing it. And on the other side as well, the risks that are involved in going direct as against going through a platform.
So as I said, cryptocurrency is much younger and much less regulated, and that means that there's less oversight. Even now that it's been declared that regulation is started, it's still in the early days, and so there's fewer protections in place for customers right now. And that's why you still hear the stories of less reputable crypto exchanges going belly up and losing customer funds and that sort of thing. One of the key risks people often talk about is high volatility, because the cryptocurrency market is based on the supply and demand of a limited asset. And we can't maintain the stability by issuing more Bitcoin the way a company can issue more stocks on the stock exchange. That being said, there are blockchain-based assets that aren't limited and so are more stable, and those are aptly named stable coins. So you can buy stable coins on the blockchain, which like USDC, and I think South Africa is going to be coming out with its own stable coin soon. But by far, the biggest risk in crypto for customers is really customers themselves. It's still quite new and it's mostly self-service. There aren't a lot of checks and balances to prevent customers from making mistakes or being preyed on. So they easily fall prey to scammers, and they easily make unwise financial decisions or just plain mistakes in what they do. So you still need to exercise quite a lot of caution and make very educated choices in order to invest safely until we can build in more guardrails as we go along.
And the wallet, I've heard some horror stories of people who bought a lot of Bitcoin early on and then forgot the address to their wallet or the password on how to get in. Is that just urban myth, or could
it have happened? It depends on the type of wallet you use. Again, in the early days, things were a lot less user-friendly, and people often only had one way to get into their wallet, which was one password. Also, wallets that aren't affiliated to a company, so are non-custodial, meaning that no one is helping them maintain custody or look after the funds, means that you get no help whatsoever. It's great if you want to have your funds completely to yourself because you don't trust anyone else, which is fine. But if you need help in case you're going to forget your password or you're going to lose something, you really want a company who's going to help you look after your funds and keep them secure, who will then help you recover your password and make sure that it's you recovering it and not some scammer who's pretending to be you, and will help you add extra security features and that sort of thing. And that's what Luno is, the type of platform it is. It helps you with that sort of thing.
So that's part of the Luno service. You're not going to lose the cryptocurrency because you might have forgotten your password. Yeah, I think it make a lot of people feel a lot more comfortable.
We've had quite a few customers, especially in Malaysia, when we were shut down for a long time, come back after 3 or 4 years and say they can't remember their password or the email, but they have all this money from the early days. And we've had to go a long road to make sure that it was them, that it wasn't someone's trying to steal their money and get their funds back to them. So yeah, we do go down that road quite often.
Bright, why can't I buy crypto with a credit card? Just take my Investec card and say, I'd like to buy 1,000 rands worth of crypto on Luno. Why is that not possible?
So, to be clear, it's possible if you buy from Luno locally or in South Africa. It's impossible if you want to buy from Luno in another country or from other providers offshore. And the reason it's exchange control restriction. Is we all clear our exchange control. It's very restrictive in its nature. So the exchange control manual, which gives residents allowances, prescribes allowances that South African residents can use whenever they buy assets or they buy items for any reason offshore, provides an allowance, the so-called card allowance, credit and debit card. And it allows residents, individuals and corporates to pay for items or to use their debit or credit cards for an amount of up to 50,000 rands when they buy items from offshore. The way they use it's for small transactions. And in brackets, they say, for example, for imports, it looks the Reserve Bank strictly limits that allowance to imports. So, like for the sub seems to be limiting that allowance, the card allowance, to transactions that are in relation to import or importation of goods, small items, and they don't regard the buying of crypto assets as imports or as importation contemplated in the card allowances. Hence, they issued a directive or mandate to banks not to allow such kind of transactions.
That makes a lot of sense. But what we are then talking about on Luno, as long as I'm a South African resident, Carin, I can use my bank card to fund the account.
It really depends on whether we have providers that are willing to allow the use of bank cards. We have found that in South Africa, we have found that the banks are very shy of allowing customers to use cards to buy cryptocurrency, which I completely understand, because you wouldn't want someone investing based on credit. You can, with some platforms, use a card in order to buy cryptocurrency. I'm always a little nervous when I see a platform advertising that you can use a card, particularly a credit card, in South Africa, because often what they're doing is they are processing the transactions offshore, even though the transaction is being made in South Africa. And so you're actually paying much higher fees for that transaction. So I always take a bit of a pinch of salt, and you're going to want to double check the fees of whatever transaction is using a card, just in case.
Okay, so how do you find a safe place to buy your first crypto? Because this is all about making your first investments, Carin. What's a safe place to invest in crypto? Is it as simple as opening an account with Luno and away you go?
Well, I mean, Luno is one of the ones you could choose. An easy way to look is, since all crypto is digital, all the platforms have strong online presences, so it's pretty easy to use Google to look them up. You're going to need to buy crypto using your local currency. So you're going to want to look for which are the most popular or well-used crypto platforms or exchanges in your country. And then once you've got a few names from Google or from adverts you've seen, or because Rossi's told you, or from friends or family, then the next step is to work out whether they're safe. And the easiest green flag to look for is if you're in a country that's regulated, like Malaysia, then you just check which ones are adhering to the regulations. And if you're in a country where the regulation isn't in place yet or isn't completely in place yet, like South Africa, then it's good to look for the platforms that are already registered with the Central Financial Intelligence Agencies, because that isn't mandatory in most countries, but it's a really good sign if the platforms have opted to do that anyway, because it means that they are being held accountable and have to report on things. And usually if they are attempting to licensed with regulators or have been already, it means they've been thoroughly scrutinized already and been audited. So they're in good standard. And I always like to use that word, reputable platforms. A safe platform, a good place to buy, will have built up a good reputation. So there should be positive news articles about them. They should have relationships with banks and registered financial services providers. And there shouldn't be any news articles about hacks or customer loss of funds. Basically, you want to look for a platform that has been around quite a while and has been used by a lot of other people and that they haven't had any problem with.
That was Carin Bowman, who's the Senior Product Manager at Luno, with Bright Tibane, partner at the legal firm Bowmans. I'm Alec Hogg from biznews.com.